Good morning and welcome along to the Celtic Unrestricted View podcast. Well, folks, today we've got a very special podcast. It's a guest episode, and we're chuffed to bits about that. And joining me on this guest episode is my co-host Ryan, our very good man Alan, and a very special guest, ex-Aberdeen, Cardiff and Scotland international, Mr. Kevin Mcnaughton. How are you, Kevin? It's good to see you, mate.
All right, guys. Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Total pleasure, mate. Total pleasure. Ryan, it's amazing to get Kevin on. Obviously, looking forward to this, mate. It'll be a very good chat.
It's the first guest of the year, mate, as well for us. Kevin's had a fantastic career, mate. Played with some fantastic players, brilliant managers. He's played at the highest level, the Premier League, Scotland. He's played in the SPL. When the SPL was quite good as well, mate. Celtic Rangers were obviously going toe-to-toe for the league as well. And the league was kind of very good back then as well. So he's played at a high level, mate. Played in FA Cup finals a lot, mate. So it's a very good guest we've got here, mate, in terms of football knowledge and knowledge of the game, mate. So I'm really looking forward to getting his story and hearing about his career as a footballer, mate.
Yeah, definitely. Alan, cheers for joining us, mate. I bet you're looking forward to this one, mate.
Of course. Just to kind of ditto what Ryan says. Obviously, fantastic career. Kevin, both north and south of the border and internationally. So it's great to hear kind of aspects of the game that maybe us and the viewers don't know about so much. So it'd be great to hear some of Kevin's memories and thoughts about football past and present.
Yes, and just as Alan says that, Kevin, we'll start with you, mate. Tell us your story right off the bat, mate. Has football always been your passion for a young age? What started you off?
Yeah, I had a bit of a strong rivalry with my brother. Me and my brother played football growing up. Just in the schemes of Dundee, really. Sort of probably working class background, so it was tough going. But yeah, I remember getting a trial with Aberdeen. I think it was probably about 12 at the time, and I just enjoyed the training. I used to actually had a few trials at Dundee United, and a couple actually at Celtic as well, growing up. But I just remember going to Aberdeen training as a young lad and just thinking that I loved it. I just wanted to go back every week. Whereas at some other trainings and stuff like that, I didn't enjoy as much. So that was my sort of links towards Aberdeen. And I went up to Aberdeen when I was about 17 to go full time. Well, actually about 16, 17, went full time with Aberdeen. Moved up to Aberdeen. Stayed in digs up there with a couple of other lads. And just, again, enjoyed the football, enjoyed the training. Just enjoyed the sort of setup there. It was a really decent. There was a lot of good players as well. We had a decent team. I remember actually we played Celtic in the final at the BP. It was called the BP Youth Cup back then, and we ended up beating them 2-0. It was a decent Celtic team as well. I had likes of Sean Maloney. Sure, Kennedy played. McManus played. So there's a few names in there. David Van Zanden, I think, was there as well at the time. A few other boys who ended up going on to play professional. So if you look back at the Aberdeen team, there's only probably one or two of us. So it was a bit of a scalp for us back then. So I think it was actually the last Aberdeen team that won the Youth Cup as well. So it was a decent wee setup we had back then. And from there, it was strange. I was doing okay for the youth team. I played 1 year in the youth team. The following season, there was a few injuries, and I found myself in the first team squad out of the blue, really. And then all of a sudden, there was an injury in my first squad. The first squad I'd been in, I was playing against St Mirren. I think it was about third game into the season. I think it was Jamie McAllister at left back got injured, and I got thrown on at half time. And from then, at Aberdeen, I played pretty much every game. It's a bit of a sort of thrown into the deep end, and then just continued on for the next sort of couple of years, playing regularly. So in terms of that, I was quite fortunate, but I did take my chance when it came. And I managed to sort of just keep rolling on with it over the next couple of years. So that was sort of my background into getting into Aberdeen, especially.
It's quite interesting, Ryan, isn't it? Obviously, like how quickly you can follow your dream, mate, and then end up before you know it, mate. Ryan, you're playing first team football straight away. It's quite quickly how they say football's a funny old game, mate, and they can turn round and it's it's quick turnover, mate.
Yeah.
No, as Kevin says, JP, he's the fact that a lot of people kind of work hard to like maybe 21, 22, 23. Just look at Celtic now. You have guys like Mikey Johnson, they get their first team experience quite early on, but it doesn't work out. They're in and out of the team, and Kevin's got his. A lot of people probably say in football maybe a lucky break sometimes, or it's a deserving break sometimes when you're back training every day, you're working hard, and then when you get your chance, like Kevin says, he's got his chance and he's took it, and the manager obviously liked what he's seen in training to put him on the bench to start off with, and then Kevin, you got your career. Was it Ebby Scobell? Did your debut, Kevin, or was it Scobell?
Yeah, it was. Ebby came in at the start when I actually first went full time. Ebby was there. I did my first season in the youth team under him, and his training was so hard. It was he had this pre-season was ridiculous. Really, we used to go into a North Sea training pool in the morning. We did an hour, and then we went into the gym after that. And then we would go and get a breakfast. And then, which followed up was doing running, a session where it was predominantly just running. And then we went, they put mattresses into the stadium and you would just go for a sleep after you had your lunch. And then we're back out again in the afternoon doing, that's when they actually got the balls out and we're doing work with the balls. But for me, that was, off the back of that pre-season, I was fit for about 3 years. To be honest with you, it was scary. That was my introduction to. I was already quite a fit guy, and probably my athleticism probably got me my career. To be honest with you, I was quite quick, and I got up and down the park. So it suited me as being a fullback. But when you were training like that as well, it was just. I could run all day. It was weird. I remember going into games thinking, I know for a fact I'm going to be able to. In my head, I used to think I'm going to make the guy I'm playing against have to chase me, the wire. So that was sort of my basis of my career, was always try to be fitter than everybody else. But he was kind of revolutionary in the weight stuff he was doing. There was a lot of free weights back then, which wasn't really heard of. But nowadays, I mean, when I was playing down south at Wigan and other clubs, all the young players were doing Olympic weights, and he'd introduced that fairly early in my career. It was something that probably helped me play as many games as I did, because there was a lot of injury prevention and stuff like that through doing the weights, the heavier weights and stuff like that, and the squatting and stuff that you probably see every day on Instagram, how boys doing their squats and everything like that. But back then it wasn't mainstream football. Certainly when I was first coming through, there was not a lot of clubs doing that. I think he brought that into my game as well. I kept doing a lot of stuff that he had sort of introduced to me at a young age. It was, if you spoke to a lot of guys back then, a lot of the older players didn't really take them, because he was introducing a lot of stuff that they were like, guys 31, 32, and they're now just suddenly, squatting and doing deadlifts and stuff like that. A lot of the boys were just like, no, this is not for me. But obviously I was young at the time, and I just got on with it. I quite enjoyed it. After a while, it was, you were in bits after doing it, but your body got used to it. And I think for me anyway, I found another gear. I was always a wee bit below the rest of the players, but once I went full time, it did something I just seemed to kick on. I think that's what I try to say to young lads when there's a few boys, younger players who were struggling when they first went full time. I just said, you've just got to try and get through that first period, because you suddenly find yourself improving just through full time training. Makes such a difference to young lads. It could really. They'll find it hard to begin with, but honestly, once they sort of get through those first few months, it definitely makes a difference to their game. If you're training every day, you're working hard every day, it does make a difference.
And see, being such a young lad, Kevin, and obviously then that the the foreign aspect to a new manager coming in, and was that kind of an easier transition for you to start doing that type of training, albeit it was hard at the beginning?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I wasn't as, like I say, probably the boys, the Derek Whites and Robbie Winters and boys like that were coming, later on in their careers. They were suddenly introduced to that at the age. A lot of them were turning their nose down to it, to be honest with you. But and he brought a lot of Scandinavian boys in who'd been doing that for years as well. A lot of these guys, you could see their physiques had obviously been doing this for years. But Scottish sort of mentality was not to be doing weightlifting, back then especially. But that's changed. It's totally changed now. I think that's totally. And for me, I think that's made a difference in the national team. I think you look at the national players now. I think we were always. I remember actually when I got my debut. Well, when I was in the squad for Scotland and we played against France, and I remember it being in the tunnel. I think we lost 4-0, but I was on the bench, and I remember looking in the tunnel, just thinking it's like men against boys. Just looking, the French team. And I remember Barthez, and I'm thinking to myself, he's actually massive. And you look at him on TV, you're thinking he's small, but he probably dwarfed half the Scotland team.
Obviously,
all these French.
Obviously, a big shout there, mate. Obviously, Barthez as well. So. I'm assuming, obviously, Celtic and Rangers were obviously very kind of mostly dominant sides in the league at that time as well. So, no doubt you would have come up against some really good players for both of their teams as well.
Yeah, I think Larsson's probably one of the best players I've ever played against. He was something special. Just for me, it's not just these goals and it's his work rate off the ball and things, stuff that you probably don't notice as much because you're too busy admiring his goals, to be honest with you. But it used to be a total rash for defenders. I remember thinking, could see him, 80 minutes still chasing the centre halves a bit, and think to myself, where did you get it from, sort of thing. He's got that inner drive. But you like playing against Aberdeen.
Aye, they're good. Especially that every Bulldog team, he does have a good record against him.
I think he's probably averaging about 2 or 3 a game, to be honest with you, when he was playing us. But I just remember, he had everything. He was like a sort of. He had no chinks in his armour, just his spring, his heading ability, just everything. He's an athlete. He had the strength as well. I remember Derek White actually tried to foul him. And he's jumped on Larsson's back and actually got his arms around him. And Larsson's still running with Derek White on his back. He didn't. He just kept.
It's a big boy,
he just kept going. He went,
he's a big boy, Derek White.
I know. He kept going for about 10, 15 yards. The ref eventually just went, no, there's a foul. But Larsson was quite content just running with Derek White on his back. I just remember thinking, no, it's something special, him.
But that was part of pre-season training as well, when it used to run up hills with people on your back as well. So he'd have been.
No Derek White.
Would have been used to that. I know Derek White. Maybe. Well, in the Celtic team, he'd Big Johan and Valharen and Big Bobo and guys like that taking tests with. But no, as I say,
but those
Larson
was
quite a strong guy.
Yeah, those Celtic and Rangers team were very, very good team. They were sort of. They would have walked into the Premier League, those two teams, with the likes of sort of your Suttons and Larssons, Petrovs. For me, they were some of the best teams. I went down, obviously played in the Premier League. I got a handful of games, and those Celtic and Rangers teams were just as good, in my opinion, anyway.
Who was the most dangerous winger that you personally faced, in Scotland, between kind of Celtic Rangers? Is there anybody that kind of you struggled with, or you thought this guy is really, really dangerous?
There was a few, to be fair. There was all different type of players. I remember Peta, he had great feet. And I struggled with him first time I played against him. And like some Moravchik as well. Boys as a fullback, you try and show guys one way, but if you've got somebody like Moravchik, you're peeing into the wind, really, because you could show him one way and he's right as good as he's left. So you were snookered really. And he was similar to one of the best players I played against was Santi Cazorla, and he was a lot like Maravchik in terms
shout
of
that is, man, Cazorla.
Oh,
Man.
He's one of the best I played against, just purely because, like I say, as a fullback, you try and push somebody onto their weaker foot or try and push them into areas where they're uncomfortable, but he was just so comfortable anywhere. I remember, I'm actually on one of his clips, his best bits. I think I make it on his best bits. He turns me inside out. I remember seeing a wee montage of his best bits, and I'm just thinking to myself, that's me. Just turn me inside out. That's me. 3 minutes in. But no, he was very good, and that Celtic team was as good as I'd faced. But again, like I say, they were all sort of man mountains. I remember the back three was Mjällby, Valharan. I think Vega was there at the time as well. You had Sutton, and I think Lennon was probably the only one you could look at. Maybe Thompson as well. You were sort of the rest were massive, and all athletes as well.
Well, you throw in Valka and Big Bobo and all. Oof.
Yeah.
Aye. Valka was, I remember meeting him.
Yeah, he was a big lad.
Aye.
I remember going in for a 50-50 with Balde. I came out with a ball and I was just I had to check myself to make sure it was nothing broken. Just thought, because I remember going in for the challenge and thinking, oh no, what am I doing? Came out with the ball.
See, when you're coming up against these guys, right, and you're at Aberdeen, and is it a mindset? Obviously, when you play in the league, right, and you're playing against all the different types of opposition and stuff, is there a mindset shift when you go to like Parkhead and Ibrox and stuff like that? Or is it a case of you have just got to try and do your very utmost best to nullify basically what their strengths are? Or what's the key there? Because obviously, as a young lad, I mean, being exposed to that actual level of quality, even round about you in the league, mate, that must have been a real eye-opener to you.
Yeah, it was a massive. It was a real gulf. I felt those two teams were so much better than everybody else. In my opinion, they were. But I think when you're playing well, you go into these games, it's not so bad. I think you've kind of got a wee bit. You come off the back of maybe a wee bit of confidence in that, and you try to play a bit. But there is when you're going through a sticky patch, and then suddenly you've got Rangers away or Celtic away, and your mindset sort of shifts towards, can we get something for the game? As opposed to, going and winning the game. It's like, can we maybe dig a draw? Can we dig a point out? Can we sneak something? Purely because of it was... but in the back of the mind as well, as the game goes on, and if it's 0-0, you grow in a wee bit of confidence as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing. See, you lose an early goal at Parkhead and Ibrox. I remember they used to play that. There used to be a tune they used to play, and I remember we got beat 6-0, and I think I was dreaming of that tune after every goal. I was getting nightmares about this song that Celtic used to play after the goal went in.
Wasn't that the Pogues, the Fiesta song, is it?
I think it might have been. I remember just getting nightmares with that song. No, there is a sort of mindset. There is a mindset shift, I think. Probably, I remember watching Dundee playing Celtic the other day, and for me, the Celtic team's not as good as back then, but I think they're still stronger than all the teams in the league, really. But I remember watching Dundee on the TV the other day, and you could see that they weren't. It wasn't until actually Celtic scored they actually came at their shell a bit. Sometimes when you are playing all right, like Dundee have been doing all right, they should maybe just take that sort of mindset in the game, that they'd be positive to begin with. But especially when you're at home, but it's easier said than done when Celtic can turn up because it's not easy. That sort of mentality of we're trying to nick something from the game kind of sticks with you.
What likes you feeling, Kevin, when you're at Celtic Park and you're lining up in the tunnel and the noise? What is the noise? Is it unbearable for some, or is it what likes it when you're in that sort of moment?
It's weird. I think it's something you have to get used to. Because I remember my first game there, like it was like a cauldron. Celtic Park was like a cauldron. It was just you couldn't see the sky. So it was hard because you don't get a lot of the ball. So it's not like you play yourself in the game. I mean, I remember the first 15 minutes, I thought to myself, I've not touched it yet. And when I did, I gave it away and thought, God, that could be my last touch for another 20 minutes. So it was hard. It's difficult because the fact that you don't see a lot of the ball, you're playing against clever players, so you've got to be switched on at all. But I kind of enjoyed that challenge as well. I enjoyed playing in those sort of games. It's one thing you miss when you stop playing is playing in those sort of games. As my career went on, I appreciated them games more.
Brian, we chat about that often, didn't we? About like what it must be like for a younger guy going in against Celtic or Rangers or going to the bigger arenas and playing in the bigger arenas. And just as Kevin says, it can be just as daunting as what we're actually thinking, because obviously it's got to be huge. I mean, it's got to be a massive mindset shift. You've got to take in your own sort of way of doing things in that moment.
I think obviously Kevin's came up for the youths and then he's playing in the first team, and I think it's Celtic and and stuff. There's obviously the Celtic B team are playing against the lower league players, and again it's still a good standard of players. But for them to go for that, to then go up to the first team, the mind shift jump for playing against part-time players or ex-professionals and then getting up to that level, it's a big jump. So I think in terms of that as well, like even like Kevin says, Dundee Celtic, when Dundee play St Mirren or they play Aberdeen, it's maybe an equal playing field. They can maybe get at each other and they can maybe tactically maybe do things. But like Kevin says, when you play against Celtic, even Rangers as well, you've got to mention them as well, as much as a Celtic podcast, they are still the two big teams in Scotland. I think when you go to their stadiums, you're kind of hoping they don't turn up. Like Kevin says, Dundee would be hoping, right, okay, if we get in the first 20 minutes, nothing each, right, that's the first goal done, half an hour, half time. And I think that's where, like Kevin says, when he played against Celtic Rangers back then, well, maybe 60 minutes and nothing each, you'd maybe thinking, right, okay, here, maybe get a goal here, maybe we can start to get a bit of kind of promise here. So I think in terms of young lads, it must be amazing to make your debut or even just play these big, even at Aberdeen, playing at Aberdeen. Aberdeen's a big club, I think it's 18,000 fans and they do get a decent crowd as well. That must be quite daunting as well for a young player. But see, leading up to the games at Aberdeen, Kevin, like Celtic, Rangers, even like if you're playing, I think as well you play some qualifiers, Europa League and stuff like that. How's did the tactics change behind the scenes? Does the field change? Like the way, let's say, Escobar or Jimmy Calderwood, guys like that, would they change your mindset to their tacticals, how to play against these guys? Or is it the sense of just basically just do what you can and make sure you try and kind of go and win the game if you can?
Jimmy Calderwood was one who always changed his tactics, especially for the Old Firm games. He was massive for changing things up. I remember actually because the one thing he used to always put me as a man marker. If somebody was playing really well, he'd put me as a man marker because I was a bit of a rash as a kid, and like I say, I was really fit. I could run all day, so I used to be one of them horrible boys who just try to ruin somebody's game. Just just kind of about them, just be a rat basically.
I love that.
And,
No, Kevin, you're spot on. I remember you playing against us. You were a menace at times. I remember going like that. He's dead annoying, so he just never tees in.
But I think when I played Celtic, it was Petrov. Petrov was doing well at the time, so my job was just to be about him, just stop him playing. And it was similar. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Barry Ferguson or whoever it was. But it always changed the Old Firm. But his tactics changed. He was one who changed his tactics quite a lot. He always looked at the opposition, thought maybe we'll change someone up here. Whereas other managers would say, right, we'll just play our best team. Or I remember Eb Skovdal once played a 5-4-1 against Celtic, and we got beat 1-0, and it was a penalty towards the end of the game, and I think he came out and said the operation was a success, but the patient died. That was his quote after the game. So obviously these negative tactics, sometimes they can almost get your result at times, but to be fair, it must be horrible watching it Because I remember playing in it thinking, it was just waves of attack for Celtic, and we were just, there was that many bodies in around the box. It just created enough to stifle Celtic, but eventually, you know, the pressure eventually gave in, and then we lost a penalty. It's tough, because if you set up like that and then Celtic score after 2 minutes, then what do you do? You know, it's like you set up 5 at the back and Celtic score after a couple of minutes, then you're totally up in the air then after that. So I'm always one for, I always felt like you put your best team out, and then, you know, the guys adapt to the game as well. I think players are not daft enough to say, like, look, he's causing us problems, we'll double up or something like that. That's what used to happen, certainly. But Jimmy Calderwood was one who just, he had a thing as well where we put a signal out where we'd play 4-2-4 if we were getting beat. So we would just go gung-ho. And the boys used to laugh and say, it's like, he's about to get the trumpets out here and we'll go with the cavalry, he's about to charge. So we're like, if we're getting beat 1-0 with about 10 to go, you could just see them, oh no, the trumpets are the way to go, mate. Yeah, we're going to go for it. But again, I think a few managers clocked on I'm doing that, and they would change as well, and sort of it just caused mayhem a couple of games.
So how was he as a manager, Jimmy Calderwood? I think we all kind of see him as he was, maybe he would have a go in the dressing room. Was he the kind of hairdryer treatment, or was there any managers that you've had that have been that kind of personality as such, Kim?
Yeah, he was a wee bit like that, but he was good. He was really good with players. I think the only thing with him is if your face didn't suit, I think you didn't have much of a chance. But if you were one of his players, it was good. I enjoyed working under him. He was good. He got in my head a bit, got me back sort of. I came back for injury. I wasn't playing well, but he got back and he got sort of in my head a wee bit and just got me back. Sort of gave me a wee shoot of confidence. Just I played this every week as well, which helps if you're getting games. But I enjoyed his training and that as well. It was a lot of, obviously came from a sort of Dutch school of sort of coaching, so it was just a lot of passing. It was all try to just play some decent football, which at times we did under him. But I enjoyed working under him. But he had a few moments in training mainly. It wasn't really in games, but he would lose a rag in training if the standard wasn't good. I remember him going.
How's Aberdeen as a whole, as a city? I know it's a kind of one club city in regards to football. So is there quite a lot of pressure kind of heaped upon the players? Do you feel that when you're playing, or how do you feel the fans are? Yeah,
the fans were brilliant with me. I really enjoyed the fans, but there is that sort of mentality that obviously they've had a fantastic history with European football, etc. And I think there is still that belief where they can still compete with the top two. And in years they've pushed the top two at times, but they've never. I think that the finances nowadays it's difficult for the likes of Aberdeen to compete, and I think that's the sort of mindset with the fans. Obviously, having that success in the past is still there a little bit, probably with the older generation, less than the younger ones. But certainly when I was playing, you could still sort of feel that. No, we should be that third team minimum. Whereas when I was coming through, we were a lot of young boys. The finances weren't great and stuff like that, so it was difficult. It was hard to live up to sort of those expectations.
You played with a lot of good players in the Aberdeen team as well, like yourself, Barry Nicholson.
Yeah.
Like you say, Robbie Winters, some of the experienced lads.
Mm-hmm.
Were they, especially the experienced lads, Kevin, were they a good inspiration to you in terms of bringing you into the team and helping you gel? Did they help you gel quickly and make that transition smoothly for you?
Derek White was very good with me. He was the character in the dressing room, Derek. He set up a wee thing at the end of the season where everybody would go away. We went away to Mallorca for, I think it was 3 or 4 nights and stuff like that. So there was always sort of team bonding stuff, and he made sure everybody was together. David Priest, the goalkeeper as well. He was good. And, he was good in the changing room, David. And obviously Robbie. There's a few Scandinavian boys as well, Cato Gunbite and boys like that. There were a lot of good good personalities in the changing room. And obviously, I think what helped me as well as a kid is there was about 5 or 6 young boys came through at the same time. Because I was quite a quiet lad, certainly when I was younger. And so having that sort of group of boys coming through together definitely helped me settle a lot more, playing with boys that you'd played with. But that was a decent changing room. It was good. It was a good bunch of boys.
Who would you consider as the most gifted player you played with alongside at Aberdeen? I know there's been, as the guys have said, there's been a fair few good players that we've mentioned. I know there was kind of ones we've not said there, like the kind of Aberdeen cult hero at Zerouali. Who would you consider as the most gifted player you played alongside at Aberdeen?
Probably Ian Jess when I first came.
Ian Jess.
I first came in and trained with the first team. I was man marking Ian a few times, and I remember him he was so good with his back to the goal, just the quick half turn, and finishing was brilliant as well. I think in that training session he scored 3 or 4 goals, and I remember marking him, thinking I'm not quite at that level. And that was when I was about 16 or something. I hadn't quite. It was only my first. I think it was my first year in the first team, not in the first team, in the youth team, and I'd got asked to train with the older boys because they were short on bodies. And I remember thinking, he's on a different level than me at the moment. So that was sort of something to strive to. But I remember thinking, even then, he was into the peak of his powers, but when you play against guys like that and they've still got a bit in the legs, you see glimpses of it. And certainly with him, he had a bit of magic still left in him.
Kevin, there was murmurs around about the 2005 season. There was murmurs of you coming down the road to Celtic, and obviously I think Fulham was linked to you at the time. Was that kind of true? How did that come about?
That was weird. I think there was inquiries made, but nothing ever grew to fruition. Really, it was weird. I think the Fulham thing, they asked Aberdeen if we could come down on trial. Through one of their chief scouts, and then their chief scout left, and then that was it. It fell through, sort of thing, and that was the only thing sort of happened then. But it was weird. There was actually Cardiff who actually made inquiries as well before I ended up signing them a couple of seasons before as well. So there wasn't really anything concrete. It was like Celtic or any other team. It wasn't until the contract ran out Aberdeen that there's quite a lot of interest from sort of abroad as well, over in Holland and down south, but nothing at Celtic.
So was the Cardiff move, as you said there, was that purely just a new experience for yourself? Was that just something you wanted to pursue then?
It was weird. I think I just made my mind I was going to leave Aberdeen. They'd let my contract. I'd signed it at the start of the season, but they'd let it run to the couple of weeks before I was able to speak to other teams. And it was under Jimmy Calder, who I really liked playing with and enjoyed it. And he was probably the only reason I was wanting to stay. I did want something different. I just wanted a new sort of challenge and but in my head I was wanting to go down south and give it a crack in the Championship or whatever sort of level I could get to. But as soon as Cardiff came in, they showed us what the sort of plans were for the club, and I just thought instantly, no, this sounds like a good fit. And there was a
Dave
couple
Jones,
of Scots.
Was Dave Jones that took
it was Dave Jones. So I left it right to the end of the season before I actually made my decision, but I ended up signing once my contract ran out with Cardiff, and thankfully it turned out well for us.
See, at Cardiff, when you obviously went from Aberdeen to Cardiff, when you first started training with Cardiff, Kevin, did you notice, was the standard, obviously with Celtic Rangers, he says it's probably, the standard player was very good and they could have walked into teams down south. When you go to the Championship with Cardiff, was the step up in standard or training standards, was that a mind shift, a mental shift to go, right, okay, I'm a different kind of pond here, I need to maybe up my levels here, or because you were already fit at Aberdeen and obviously through Scopedale you were been through that before, was it a kind of easier transition knowing you were already quite fit to move into that kind of standard of play?
I think the Championship suited my game to a T. Sort of, it was really high paced, and the fitness levels you had to be spot on, especially playing 40 odd games a season. I think
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one season played 50 odd games. But yeah, that just suited me. It suited me. The pace of it was, to be fair, it was similar sort of pace, but it was just, I think you had to be an athlete. Just a lot of quick wingers, a lot of direct football at times you're up against. So you had to be at it in terms of that. I remember, but that Cardiff team at the time, I remember going into training and think, geez, there's a lot of good players I never had heard of who were playing at Cardiff. It was guys like a guy called Paul Parry, who was Welsh international.
Paul Parry,
honest, very, very good player. Guys like that I'd never really heard of. I had Steve McPhail in midfield, ex-Leeds. It's very good. A lot of boys played some really. Michael Chopra ended up signing from Newcastle as well. Who was, it was different class. It was a lot of guys who, again, not really seen a lot of, but as soon as I trained with them, I was like, we've got a no bad chance here of getting promoted.
How did you adjust to life personally, but making that kind of, obviously you were still a relatively young man, making that move for Dundee or Aberdeen away down to kind of southerly points of Cardiff? So was that a big move for you personally? Did you adjust okay to that emotionally?
Yeah, I loved it, to be fair. It's an up and coming sort of city. When I moved down there, they just done up all the dock area. I mean, it was a lovely place. The people as well, all brilliant. There was obviously one club in the city, so that made a difference as well. Just the supporters were always brilliant towards me. Just sort of found a home there. It was weird. Just I remember after a couple of seasons thinking, I'd probably see myself playing here to the end of my days. I enjoyed it that much. And then, it was a pretty easy transition. Probably the football, in terms of, I actually probably started playing my best football age about 23, 24, and that was probably at my peak of my powers. Really, I was playing really, really well, enjoying it, and like I say, just found a sort of home there.
So, see me obviously going down there, and obviously then right away you made a change of position, so you moved over to the left side. How did you find that adjustment? Did it take you a while to get going, or did you just enjoy it? Because I remember obviously feet up here, Kevin, and you seemed quite natural with 2 feet as well. So I'm just wondering, how did you find that adjustment moving over to the left side?
It's weird. I played better football when I'm playing left back. I know I'm like naturally right-footed, but I played all my best football at left back for some reason. I don't know what it was. It was just, I found it easier going forward, and I think that's one side of my game I struggled with when I was playing right. Just for some unknown reason, I didn't get forward as well. Didn't deliver as good crosses. I was better cross with the ball on the left foot for some reason as well as my weaker foot. So yeah, it was weird. I just hit the ground running at Cardiff, and I knew, because I'd played a few games for Aberdeen left back. That was where I played when I first got into the team, and I played well then. So I had a bit of confidence off the back of that, because they had a few injuries and there was no left back, so I sort of slotted into that fine. Enjoyed it, and I did say to Dave at the time, said, this is probably the position I feel more comfortable in. But then ended up, new managers came in after Dave, and they never really wanted us to play left back again, sort of thing. So I just sort of finished my career playing on the right side, and later on in my career I played a wee bit centre half.
See, when you go to sign for clubs, Kevin, obviously now I know finances are different, and it's the way football's moving forward. It's moving at a fast pace in terms of transfers. But I'm a big believer, like at Celtic at the moment, like you get guys playing at the top level, maybe getting high wages and stuff. But I feel that maybe sometimes again, we don't know the ins and outs of clubs, kind of what to do at board level, recruitment level, but sometimes I feel we maybe don't ask the question to some of these kind of players and show them what Celtic's got and this is the plans. But see, when you go to new clubs, i.e. when you went to Cardiff, does the plan for the club in the future, what the plan for you, what the plan going forward, is that a big incentive? Then they said obviously now a lot of money's kind of football's moved on. Money's a massive part of the football moving forward now. But see, when you were playing, was like the standard of the football, where you were playing, where you're moving to, was that a massive kind of thing? Right, okay, this is what I can go when I move here. This is what I could potentially go moving forward. Is that something you thought about more than kind of that side of things?
Yeah, and certainly with Cardiff, they've showed us the blueprints for a new stadium, the new training ground that planned and stuff like that. So, but instantly I thought, they're obviously trying to go somewhere. And I think one thing for me as well, the length of contract. Cardiff offered me 3 years, so if it had been a couple of years, maybe looked elsewhere. But 3 years, I thought, I've got 3 years here. I can really give it a good crack. It's not like a year and then I'm.
That's security as well.
Definitely, just having that wee bit of security. So for me, it was sort of a no-brainer. There was a couple of other clubs. There was a couple in Holland as well, NEC Nijmegen, and there was another team in Holland as well who'd made inquiries, but they're probably a bit young, and I didn't fancy the sort of language change in this sort of totally different aspect of football. I think I just felt that that sort of style of football probably suit me a bit better. But yeah, there was Sam Haman who was in charge at the time. He was some character. I went to shake his hand and he just came and gave us a double high five and put us in a headlock. So I was thinking to myself, I'm not sure. And then when I went to the stadium, one of the letters in Ninian Park had fell off as well. So I was like, oh my God, maybe not.
What have I done here?
I've just seen all the plans for all this new stadium and the training ground and that, and the chairman just got us in a headlock and the stadium's falling a bit. So there was a wee bit nervous. And then one of the staff members came up and said, just make sure he's not got you eating ram's bollocks in your contract. You need to look in the small print because he does it with certain players. So I was a wee bit worried about that as well when I was signing. That they didn't need to eat any sort of
a booster for trial for signing
delicacies.
What Ted Lasso.
That was a wee bit. That was the one thing I thought. But the manager was like just. It was like having David Brent wandering, and the manager basically said that just like he's waiting to come in here in a minute, right, and just be ready for him, like sort of thing. So, yeah, go to shake his hand and I get a headlock and just double high fives. I was like, all right, okay.
I suppose that's one way you call that a breaking the ice, isn't it? Really, it's obviously it's his way, or maybe try to make you feel comfortable. Maybe I don't know. Maybe
he was a character. He was such a character. He was mental, but like I said, he'd come in the changing room at times as well, just storm in, start going mad. If you're getting beat and stuff like that, But he was only there for about 8 to 10 months, I think, and then he left. Peter then followed by Peter Ridsdale. It was like, obviously no great track record there as well. So it was like, Peter was all right. Peter wasn't too bad.
See, in terms of, when you go, mate.
I was happy it was involved with Leeds, wasn't it? Peter Ridsdale, he was the chairman of Leeds, wasn't he? Man, right?
Yeah, he was the chairman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no.
He was sorry, I couldn't hear you there, broke up. But Peter was the chairman at Leeds when I think all the financial problems happened. I think one time he did say to the supporters, if we sold X amount of season tickets, the money would be used for transfers. But it turned out that the club were in a lot of financial trouble, and the money ended up having to just go into the coffers, and I think the fans weren't too happy with him.
See, in terms of obviously like your daily routine, did it change for Aberdeen to Cardiff? Because obviously, like you say, that Ebbe Scobar, it was kind of a lot more kind of maybe ahead of his time, maybe like cold water therapy stuff in the North Pole and the North Sea stuff. That's obviously now it's kind of essential now with the ice baths and all that stuff in pre-season, Kevin. But did your daily routine change at Aberdeen to Cardiff, or were you sort of player that you like to stick to your same routines and keep that going because that's maybe what worked for you?
Yeah, I did a lot of stuff off my back in the gym and stuff. But the one thing I noticed differently is you didn't, when there was a lot of games in the Championship, you didn't train a lot because you just couldn't train. You were playing, recovering, maybe doing a light session, playing, recovering, doing other. It was just an onslaught of games at times, especially around, I remember about November time. If you'd been training too hard, we hit a bit of a brick wall in November. We didn't have a big squad. We had boys playing every single week. And I remember with Cardiff, we were flying. And then we hit November and it was like, got a couple of boys injured, a couple of boys in the well. And we didn't have a squad capable of sort of just maintaining that sort of charge. I think that's one thing. You look at the Championship, you need to have a good squad. The good squad gets you promoted at the Championship. You could have a good team, and I mean, you could see over the course of 40-odd games that it's hard to maintain that. I think that's one thing I found difficult going down there was the amount of games, and I trained quite hard, so at times I was having to fight my own sort of natural instinct, which was to work hard, whereas it was mainly just get your feet up at times as well. You've got another game coming up in 2 days, and that's at the end of the day, the games are more important than training. At times, you just had to put everything else down tools for certain periods, especially over Christmas as well. Or the amount of games you played. Yeah. I mean, that could be quite tough going as well. But I enjoyed it as well, though. I enjoyed just playing games, and obviously you want to play games. That's what it's geared towards. So if you're playing loads of games, it's brilliant.
And obviously, you mentioned Santi Cazorla earlier. What a player he was. To watch him even on the TV, but I can only imagine what it must have felt like playing against him with that lower centre of gravity he had and the way he could move. But is there any other fond memories you've got of another member of quality opposition or an individual that caught your eye while you were down there?
Oh, there was a few played against, not directly, but just they were playing on the same pitch. And I remember just thinking, well, I think Gerrard, we played against Liverpool in the Cup. We actually scored to make it 1-0 loss, and Gerrard had a wee 15-20 minutes period in the game where he just looked the best player on the park, really. And then there was Van Persie as well. We played against Arsenal in the Cup again, and just was head and shoulders above everybody else on the pitch. Just looked, he was at Arsenal. He was at sort of peaking his powers then as well, so he was good. Played them in the Cup, and then it was Berbatov as well. Played against him in the Cup.
Oh wow!
What a player! There's a lot of. That was the one thing in the Championship. You always have decent. If you had a half decent cup run, you were playing against top teams. You played against Chelsea with Drogba and Lampard. Lampard. I could see how he could score. How he scored so many goals. He was so selfish on the ball. He just every time he got it, he was looking to shoot. But yeah, a lot of good players. Even like Zidane, Sturridge at the times at Chelsea as well. He came on and he looked the part. So yeah, there was so many. There was so many boys. But Cazorla stood out because I was playing against him directly, and it was my first Premiership start against Arsenal at Emirates. So we hung on to about 80 minutes, I think, and then they nicked a couple of goals towards the end. It was one of them games where we were under the cosh a bit and we were trying to nick points, so it was tough. But he was special. He was sort of head and shoulders above anybody else I'd played against. Just his technique and his ability to just chop and change. And managed to make these best bits.
He's that magical. He's the only guy I know to be teleported into a glass globe and Balliol. To them. So that's how magic he is, guys. You know what I mean? But,
you mentioned the cup run there. How special was that? Obviously, it kind of came to the end, the final, and it was two of the more, with all due respect, to two kind of underdog teams in Cardiff and Portsmouth. How did that cup run feel? Was that must have been a massive part of your career, one that you'll remember until the last minutes fondly?
Yeah, definitely. That was weird because obviously going down to Cardiff, main priority was trying to get promotion with them, and then it was weird. We played a couple of underdog teams. Then we played against Wolves, who were in the same league. We won that game and found ourselves in the quarters against Borough, who were in the Prem at the time. Another pretty decent team. They'd like Downing, and I'm sure they had Mendieta and boys like that playing. So they were a good side, but they were struggling a bit. So I think going into that game, it was weird because we knew they were struggling, and it actually was probably a good thing that they were playing at home, because we knew if we actually started the game quite well, we could put a bit of pressure on them. The crowd could turn a bit, and it's exactly how it played out. We got ahead in the game, and the atmosphere in the stadium just changed. And we managed to grind it out. I think we ended up winning 2-1 the game. And all of a sudden, you're in the semi-finals, and then there was a few. I remember watching Barnsley beat Chelsea and thinking, "Wow, there's a few teams here." Well, I think it was West Brom, Portsmouth, Barnsley, and ourselves left in the competition. I was thinking, no, we've got a chance here to get the final if we get, bar maybe Portsmouth. We've got a really good chance. So we get to the final. It ended up being a bit disappointing because we felt sort of Portsmouth were there for the taking. And the game wasn't a great game. It was pretty stuffy, and it just ended up being a mistake from the keeper. Ended up costing us. So it was, but if you'd asked me, if going down to Cardiff, you're going to be involved, you're going to get promoted, you're going to be involved in a League Cup final, you're going to be involved in an FA Cup final, they would have laughed at you. So the FA Cup, especially, because I would obviously watch that as a kid, and you watch all the build up, you watch all that, and then suddenly you're actually doing it. It was crazy. Just walking out in Wembley itself as well was something special. So
wow.
Plus, it's in front of us. I think sure 89,000 as well, Kevin. That's to say you've played obviously as an FA Cup final, but in front of that crowd, that's for me, it's mental. I think that must be why you're professionals. I think when you work to that level and you play in big stadium, like you say, playing Celtic Park, you played at them, you're kind of used to that atmosphere. So I think it must be, for me anyway, like, I've only played in front of a few thousand, a few hundred when I was younger, and you think, oh, that's brilliant. But when you go to play at that level, I think, again, it's the mentality of kind of being a footballer and obviously being at that level. I think it's, I think that's one reason why guys like yourself make it, Kevin. Again, it's the mentality of turning up every week and training hard to play in front of the big crowds and not get put off with maybe fans booing you or giving you abuse or saying you're not good enough. And again, maybe me now know as much when I was younger. Might say things you shouldn't say, oh, you're not good enough. But then when you take a step back and you speak to guys like yourself, you kind of think about things differently in that sense and all. But see, Cardiff, when you mentioned you played against guys, you played with guys like Trevor Sinclair, Craig Bellamy, Aaron Ramsey, Hasselbank, Ledley. That's still to play in front of the guys, mate, and with them. Yeah. Was there any guys that stood out to you? I know Aaron Ramsey was young at the time. I know he played with Rangers and stuff, so boo Rangers. I get that, right? But I can appreciate a good player, and Aaron Ramsey.
That'll make you popular amongst the fans.
No, but I can.
It's a crack penalty taker.
I know I'm a Celtic fan, but I can appreciate good players, Kevin. And he was a world class player. He was a wonder kid, and even get Joe Ledley, Hasselbank, brilliant career. So you played with some magic players, mate, in terms of that as well. But could you see that in training? Like how they got to that level, and even the guys at that certain bit of their career, was that a very good standard training?
Yeah, definitely. Like Jimmy Floyd was he was always there training. He never missed a training session. Kept himself in honestly peak condition. He was involved in most of the games the whole season. Didn't miss a training session. He was, and I think you could see why he'd sort of had the career he had. And same with Trevor Sinclair as well. When he came in, he was, he worked his absolute bum off on the training park as well. The one guy who was a bit different who just was natural talent was Robbie Fowler.
Oh, Fowler.
When he came, he was something special. He was just class, but you could see he'd treated his body slightly different than the other boys. Remember?
Nice way of saying it.
There was no early morning jumping in off seas for him, mate. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but we used to have a laugh because
we woke up in off sea.
Aye.
But that was Robbie. Robbie said from the offset, he said, "Look, I've got the body of a Ferrari, but I've been putting diesel in it for the last 15 years."
Brilliant.
That's a good analogy, that. That's a good one, Robbie.
So he was, he was
Special player, though.
He was a boyhood hero of mine. I remember watching him thinking, wow, some special. So to be him, as a person I'd been starstruck when anybody had played with, I thought, wow, he's here. I used to sort of collect this guy Panini stickers, I was thinking.
What about Craig Bellamy? Because obviously Craig came up here, he was really popular up at Celtic and stuff, and he was a massive character. But obviously by the time Celtic got him, he was well into his pomp then, and he scored some really good goals up here, and he seemed a big character.
I was actually at Aberdeen when he came up. I remember playing against him. He scored a volley against Aberdeen from a corner, I think. And he was class. Even when he came, he wasn't at the sort of peak of his powers, but you could see, just mentality-wise, just the winner. It rubbed out. I did that. I actually learnt a lot from him, just the way he looked after himself. I thought he was going to just come here sort of towards the end of his career just for a bit of a jolly up, but I could see how hard he worked, and I could see why he'd got to where he'd got to. And sort of, I did actually look at him and think, I should start now certainly towards the end of my career, start looking after myself away, because he's recovering and stuff like that. He's always, it sounds simple, but just like an hour after training or something like go over to the swimming pool, go for a swim, things like that. Just wee things. I just noticed wee things with him. And I noticed the way he'd sort of, before training, he would go in and do his stretching, he'd do all his bits and bobs in the gym, off his own back. So I started looking at that thinking, this is something I need to sort of work on as well.
Because I've listened to a lot of kind of podcasts with other kind of podcast people got under the course and stuff, and a lot of people talk about Bellamy, like his standards, and sometimes he might be maybe a bit harsh on young guys. But for me, when I was younger as well, like JP, Alan would probably say as well, yourself, Kevin. But sometimes because of the standards they've been at, and that's kind of they're not really trying to be critical, they're trying to help you, but that's just their way of putting it across because of the standards have been all through their career. And was there anything like that even at Cardiff? Was you still kind of not a ball and shooter, but was you still as demanding and players, listen, let's just say a pass was in Chris when they weren't controlling it, listen, you've got to get better because for us to win games? And was that good, like you mentioned, was that a good thing to have in the dressing room, the guy who had the standards, listen, you need to keep this every day if we want to try and be better?
Yeah, he could be horrible with boys at times, especially like you say, maybe boys who didn't really respond to that sort of criticism. But you'd want them in your changing room. As I said that, it was like you sometimes want boys like that in your changing room. Just when they're out on the pitch and you're digging for that last 10-15 minutes and you need somebody to just drag you through it. And sometimes you need guys like that, It may be horrible at times on and off the pitch, but you'd have them in your team every day of the week, sort of thing. He was one of them boys. He's one of them guys. At times, he would rub you up the wrong way at times. There's no doubt about that. But, if you were selecting your team every week, you'd have him in it.
Because for me, it was quality, Kevin. I still remember up here, his perfect hat-trick at Tannadice. It's one of the best I've ever seen. I think he's left, right, I think header, I think as well. It was phenomenal. And I think, again, like you say, to play with that sort of level of player, Kevin. Again, I think yourself and to play that level, Kevin, you've obviously got a lot of ability as well. But is the mental shift because for me, I'm obviously we're talking to guys like yourself on here now, and I would say you're kind of privileged to get the information and the knowledge and stuff. And myself, JP and Alan, we see football a bit different now, and but we're not playing football now and talking to guys like yourself. But is the mental shift of having to graft every day? Like for me, I kind of look at McGregor and Brown at Celtic to even I know they played in Scotland a lot of career but to turn up every week to try and win trebles and doubles, etc., even yourself at that level, you're playing 40 odd games a season, different opposition, different weather conditions, just everything to turn up every game to strive to go and win. Is it quite kind of hard mentally to keep focusing, keep going, or is it because that's what you love doing? You just keep going and you're playing for the club and the fans as well.
Yeah, I think it's when you have a sort of strong dressing room as well. You know, you lean on players as well. You lean on their sort of. That's like you sometimes. I've heard managers say, "Be the one that makes a difference," sort of thing. So you try, even if you're not playing well, you'd always try to. No, that's one thing I did try to do as a player. I never try to hide or anything like that. Just even if I'm saying a stinker, just keep going. And I think his sort of mentality was that as well. You know, it was when you're setting standards, it's sometimes when you've got a really successful team, sometimes the hardest opponents is when you're playing each other in the sort of fives. And you know, I remember playing a really successful Cardiff team, and the toughest games were when we were playing within each other. We were setting up with the whole squad, and it was, you know, I was thinking, my God, the intensity of this game. And I think sometimes that's what gets you through. The characters in your dressing room, you know, if we always talk about this thing called a winner, and it's hard to describe how it's just somebody who, when the going gets tough, starts to get better. I think that's my analogy of a winner. Is, you know, when you're going through that tough game, who's the person that ends up, you know, excelling? Who's the guy who digs in? And sometimes, you know, I think that's the difference for me. I think when you see good players, and whenever I've played with good players or great players, the great players make the right decisions under the most pressure. And that's what, certainly as I came on in my career, and when I made it to the sort of Premier League, when I actually got to play against these guys, the decision making, their quality, the ability to do those passes or making the right decisions constantly, consistently is what's the difference. I think you make a mistake in the Championship, you're getting punished maybe 5 times out of 10. You make a mistake in that top division, you know, you're getting done every time. So
I think the only thing I can say about the levels was, I keep saying to JP about it, and it's when Celtic go to the Champions League, and for me, probably the highest level of comparison I can probably put for kind of my own eyes and seeing it kind of live was during the Invincible. I'm sure it was Invincible season when Celtic played PSG, and Scott Brown and McGregor was probably at peak his powers under Rodgers. He was phenomenal. I still say, I think you've played against Scott Brown as well, Kevin, during the career when he was at Hibs and stuff, and at Celtic. And for me, he was very underrated as a footballer. I thought he was very good technically as well, but he was, like she's a winner in the drive. McGregor's the same at Celtic. They two, I think, are top players. And then you see Verratti and Rabiot, you're thinking, wow, I don't want to say average, but wow, like was that the same you went to the Premier League when you play against Championship teams, and then you go to like your Arsenals, your Uniteds, Chelsea's? Was that a kind of mind shift for you as well, seeing that level as well?
Yeah, it was just the hardest thing for me was the concentration levels you have to have at that level. Honestly, you come off the pitch and it's quite intense. Like honestly, you're mentally knackered because you had to focus. You could not relent. It wasn't like you especially against Arsenal, there was guys as his fullback, there's a winger dropping into space to try and drag you out for another guy running out. So you're having to match the other runner. You're having to pass on information while something else is going on. It's just constant. It's, you know, it's by the end of the game, you're mentally like, oof. So yeah, I think, like I said, that the difference for me is just under those sort of extreme pressures, the good players find a way. You know, they find a way to make things happen. Like your Scott Browns and things. I think Scott Brown, when he was out of the team, you always noticed. For me, whenever Celtic were playing and Scott Brown wasn't playing, they were two different animals. So I think at times he was one of them guys that did all the stuff, the dirty stuff that nobody really appreciates. And not until actually he's out of the team, you do go, well, what's missing today? What was missing? It's probably his sort of dig and his able to just break things up and stuff like that. Even like Lennon as well. When he was at Celtic, I'd probably look up and go, well, what's he actually doing? Well, he's getting things going. He's starting things. He's breaking the play down. He's just getting, he's putting a wee bit of composure back into the game. Or boys like that are fit into good teams like that as well. And it's not until they actually get taken out you actually notice and you go, well, what was missing?
I was actually asked recently about. Sorry, Alan. On you go, mate.
Yeah.
On you go.
No, I was going to say, obviously, as young guys and young footballers, as yourself, you would have lots of ambitions, but one of the biggest ambitions you would have had, I take it, would be to get a call up for your country. How much pride did that kind of fill you with, and how was that to play for Scotland? It must have been massively exciting, and as I say, filled you with pride as well, yeah.
God, it was crazy. It just came about so quickly, and it was all weird, to be fair. Ended up obviously my first involvement with Scotland. I was meant to be starting. Then I think Bertie Volts came out in the press and said I wasn't starting because I was nervous. So it ended up being quite sour, the first sort of experience of it. But obviously delighted to be involved in it. And then eventually got my debut, which was at Aberdeen. It was scary. It was like standing there when the national anthem was just, it was surreal, really. It was a just pinch yourself sort of moment. Something that I never, even at Aberdeen when I was coming through the first team, I never felt still that I was at that level. But for it to actually have happened, it was scary. It was something that there's probably 3 things in my career that I look back on and think, that I take a lot of pride in, is obviously representing the country, getting to that FA Cup final and getting promoted with Cardiff. I think those sort of 3 were, sort of things I look back at. I think, can't get taken away from us.
Massive achievements.
Unbelievable.
No. On you go, JP.
No, I was just going to say a moment ago, I thought about now, you mentioned, Kevin, about Scott Brown not being in the team. You notice the difference. You probably see that with quite a lot of teams. They've always got that kind of main focal point in them. I was asked recently more so, what likes Callum McGregor when he's not in the team? I said, well, we don't know, because he plays about 900 games a year. He's never in the team. We've never had that luxury of not having Callum McGregor, and he plays every game. The guy's superficial. He's not a real human being, man. To be that fit all the time, like Ryan says a moment ago, Kevin, that must take a lot of desire and a lot of will. But I suppose to play like you know yourself, mate, you played at good levels, so to play at the high level and try and go for trophies, go for the honours, go for the history, then it's got to be your everyday. It's got to become your life. It's got to be your dedication, and if you're not dedicated to it, then you'll probably fall by the wayside.
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly from when I first started, in terms of your fitness levels and everything else, it's got so much better. And it's sports science, everything, every stone is left unturned in terms of recovery, everything. So you can't get away with it. Can't get away with your nights out at the weekends and stuff like that. It comes back to bite you. Mm-hmm. So in terms of that, you've got to be dedicated, and it's like it's the best career in the world. If you're it was for me anyway. It doesn't always go that way for players. I know it can be difficult, and you could get injuries and stuff like that. And it can be tough at times, but if you're not dedicated to football, it does eventually catch up with you. as it has done for quite a lot of players.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think you need to be all in, or you're not. And if you're not all in, then I don't like using the term, but these guys become journeymen. You know, they become guys that just drift through the game, and all of a sudden, before you know it, in 2 years' time, he's playing netball, he's playing squash in America with his pals, and he used to play for this team. And I seen a story the other day about Lee Irwin, used to play for Motherwell. He's now over on the other side of the world playing football now and living life again, and it just shows you like how quickly you can lose your way at one thing and then you go somewhere else and find your passion again.
Yeah, definitely. No, it can happen. I think, like I said, injuries obviously one that you can't sort of legislate for. It happens, and then whether you come back from it or not, it can be quite a pretty grueling task. I had 3 pretty bad injuries towards the end of my career, and it took its toll because you're coming back and you're not the same player, but it's hard to accept that, you know. It's hard to actually look beyond that and say, like, I'm not getting back for this. I'm not actually going to be that same player, and you've got to try and adjust your game. So that can be difficult. But like the guys who just don't put the work in, they can get away with it for a short period of time, but eventually, you know, it comes to bite you.
See, obviously after Cardiff as well, you had your loan spells as well at kind of Wigan and stuff. You mentioned Bolton. You came back up to Inverness. See, when you came up to Inverness, was the change when you're at Aberdeen to now? Could you see the difference in Scottish football in terms of, like you say, like now maybe with Celtic, maybe the quality levels maybe is not the same as like it was under O'Neill and stuff like that? Could you see the difference of Scottish football in terms of certain players who were playing at that level? Because I don't know if Brendan Rodgers was up here when you were here with Celtic in 2016. But could you see the levels when you were at Aberdeen then to when you came back up the road to Inverness? Could you see the difference in Scottish football from then?
Yeah, the Celtic still very, very good sides. Still ahead of the rest. But I just thought those two back in that period were really, really strong teams. Both Celtic and Rangers. I thought they were really, really strong. I just looking through, you could probably, like I said, you know, you've got a guy who's just he's left Celtic and he's gone to Man United, then he's gone to Barcelona. You know, so
especially his age was that as well.
You know, and at Barcelona they wanted him to stay on. You know, that's sort of testament to him.
Still carrying Derek White on all the way down to Trafford.
I know.
Get him up back in the Mediterranean Sea.
We're up in the morning, Derek. We've got an early morning swim. Come on.
Apparently, Derek White doesn't phone taxis. He just phones Larson. He's Larson.
He waits till Larson comes back for a player in the ear dance or something. He's like, hey, mate, come here. Aye, we're taking a motor tonight, mate. You're good for 300 yards. He's probably not the only defender in Scottish football that's tried to jump Larson's back through the years. Definitely no. Larson used to, it was all bigger guys Larson played against, really, wasn't it? It was all kind of, and like I say as well, he's used to playing against those guys. He was playing against Mcnaughton in training every day, so.
See, that's something, JP, I've noticed. I know we speak about it on the podcast kind of weekly, daily actually. But for me, Kevin, I feel like just Scottish football in general, but more so just on Celtic. I think Celtic sometimes lack a bit of physicality, and the game against Rangers recently was probably the nastiest in terms of it's the dirty side of the game where we've been in a long time, and I feel like Celtic lack that. I don't know, I think that's just Scottish football in general, because it's just the way we are, or is it just football moving forward and it's just more technical based and more kind of athletic based than it has been Man Mountains? Because when you played like the Celtic, even the Rangers teams, when they had guys who were like even Russo and stuff, all these guys, they were all big, strong, physical players. And I think now the game is maybe just changed and it's more technical based than it is more been kind of massive big centre backs.
Yeah, I think so. I think sort of Celtic's signing policy over the last few years has been pretty technical players, bringing them in. I've noticed that anyway. Maybe no, I'm not sure about Rodgers now that he's in, whether he'll keep going along the same lines, to be honest with you. But I think that when Ange came in, obviously he's used his influences to bring in some Asian players as well. And I think obviously you're not going to be buying there's no any man-mountain Asian players that are going to be coming in or anything like that. So I think that is, but certainly technically wise, they're top notch. But that was just a strange team. That I mean, if you went through that whole team, bar maybe your Petrov and Lennon, maybe Thompson as well. It was a massive. Big Grab Douglas in the goal as well. Even just the whole team. I remember just being stood in the dugout and thinking, you've got the likes of myself, a young Darren Mackey, a young Derek, and Darren Young just standing up. Lining up against these guys.
Quite strong and kind of as a captain and obviously quite a good leader as well.
Russell was brilliant, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He went on. He was captain for a season while I was there. I think when Derek left, and it's probably just grew into that sort of role. But if Russell hadn't had the injuries he had, I think he would probably be Premiership class. The way he was. Yeah, he was very, very good. He had a really bad knee injury. Which he did well to come back with, and he had a recurrence of that. And to be fair, he did go on to have a decent career and a very good career at Aberdeen. But I think if he hadn't had those sort of setbacks at a young age, I think he'd have gone on probably to do more and probably have more Scotland caps.
That's interesting. Uh-huh.
Russell was very good, Ryan. Very good. He was strong.
I can vaguely remember him again.
He was always in your face. I mean, even Big Sutton and stuff like that. I think they still talk about him. They've still mentioned him. I've heard Big Sutton mention him a couple of times. He was always one of the players that get in your face, and he was very aggressive.
He was quick. I think that's one thing. He was physical, but he was quick, and he recovered well. And I think once he had those knee injuries, he'd lost a wee bit of that sort of ability to recover, which. But he's still very good. I think it's hard to judge when you've had a really serious injury whether they would have kicked on. I know a few boys who've had serious injuries that you think the sort of world was at their feet at a young age, and all of a sudden it's maybe set them back a wee bit.
Who would you say is the best manager you've played under, Kevin?
There was a few. I enjoyed working under Jimmy Calderwood. It's weird. I had a good time there. It was both the Jimmies were characters. So Dave Jones was probably the period where I had my most sort of played my best football under Dave, because he just kind of, he was a bit of a free spirit. He just kind of let you play. He just set up 4-4-2 and just went, go and play. Just kind of, he actually wasn't happy with you unless you were trying to get on the ball and try and play all the time. So that was a good thing. I enjoyed that. And if you made mistakes, you made mistakes. He wasn't too bothered. He just kind of wanted you to keep going back and getting on it, which I find is sort of, I was that type of player that just needed a wee bit of encouragement and just needed just a lift, as opposed to sort of the stick. I think Malky was one of them guys. Sort of, he was really, really disciplined in terms of everything. That left no stone unturned. Sports science, every single thing. But he was harsh with it as well. We did, if you weren't doing it, he was all over you, sort of thing. So I think I had a wee period when I wasn't playing well, or had Malky sort of on my back. So it was tough. I struggled under a wee spell under Malky, but he was a good manager. He pushed you a lot and kept the standards high as well.
See up here, Kevin, see in terms of, just kind of one last thing I kind of want to ask you, see in terms of the reserve league up here, it's something we've spoken about a lot, and it's something I'd love Celtic to get back into. I'm sure they still do the reserve league, but I don't think it's anything as it was kind of back in your day, and back when kind of Celtic was like young Simon Ferry and guys like that, and he says he played with guys like Lambert, and they loved that, and playing with experienced players. And for me now, the B team, obviously it's good that they're still getting 90 minutes, they're still playing competitive football, but they obviously can't win the league, they can't get a trophy. And for me, football's all about winning games. winning trophies and developing in your career. And there's only so far that I think the boys will get to maybe get a chance. I know there's maybe youth guys at Celtic now, they're talking about the boy Frame. He's played recently in Europe, and maybe he's one of the one or two that might potentially get to the level at Celtic. But do you feel the reserve, for me, it's just my opinion, Kevin, I feel the reserve league was massive back then, because guys, just say McGregor was coming back from injury. I'm not saying he'd be coming playing in the reserve league, but maybe Celtic have got a big game at the weekend. He needs 90 minutes, he needs 60 minutes. He could go and play with kind of the youth guys and they guys. Just imagine guys like Vatter and maybe Mitchell Frame, Ben Cars, they're playing with McGregor in Middlebury Park. That must be just, you would probably get more off him for 90 minutes than you would off a coach, because he's playing at the highest level. So what's your thoughts on kind of reserve team football? And did you see that down south? Was that something that was a big thing down south as well?
Yeah, I used to think the Scottish system, in terms of the way they had it set up when I was younger, was spot on. You had, if you were an under-18s player, you were trying to get in the reserve team. If you were a reserve team player, you were trying to get in the first team. And then you would obviously get boys, like you say, come back for injury who would be involved with you. And to be playing alongside those guys, you know, you'd be learning off them as well. There'd be guys coming who maybe not quite fit, so they would come and train me as well. So it was like a stepping stones. Like, there was always something to strive for. There was always even if you were under 18 level, if you were training with the reserves at times as well, that was in the centre. Whereas it is, I don't see that same competitiveness as well. I remember that you had to play on. I'm sure you had to play on the parks as well. You had to play like
that's right.
You had to play like the reserve matches were on. If it was Pittodrie or whatever it was Celtic Park or whatever it was. So there was that. I mean, even that's an experience for you as well as a young boy coming on, getting to play on these stadiums as well, gets you used to it. And there would be a crowd there. We would let boys in, so we get a decent crowd at times as well. So for me, it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't broke. We sometimes look at foreign, get drawn into how foreign countries are doing things, but I don't understand why we don't just look at ourselves and think, you know, what system would suit us, what would bring the most out of our players. So
no, I agree.
For me, that's it worked fine certainly for my development. It pushed me, gave me something to go, like. Didn't look too far ahead. I was looking at trying to get in reserves, and if I was doing well for the reserves, then I knew that I had a chance to progress again. And if I wasn't, you know, it was like you say, you've got guys as well coming in amongst you who are professionals as well, who've done it for years, and then you're learning off those guys as well. So there is certainly that, whereas it is lost a wee bit sometimes when you're just playing under 21s and you're all just under 21s, and you know, it's totally different now.
So obviously, before we finish up today with you, just want to basically ask, what does the future hold for Kevin Mcnaughton now? Are you aspiring to get into management, Kevin, coaching? I know you're coaching currently just now, but I take it obviously you're enjoying that. So what is the next stage for you?
Yeah, I'm just coaching a junior team at the moment, alongside Lewis Toshney. So, yeah, just I'm at the sort of stage now where I'm getting back into football, and I had a wee break from it for a period of time, and now I'm back involved. So, just try to get my badges and that sorted out again, because I've had a period where I've sort of had to go back and do a sort of refresher. So, just trying to get better, just learning at this level. It's a pretty steep learning curve. Just going in. I did coaching at youth level before, so now this is totally different. I'm learning again. Hopefully, get a bit better at it, get a bit of success, and maybe look to the future and see what else holds.
Well, Kevin, I want to say a massive thank you to yourself, mate, for taking the time with us today. Yep. I know it can't be easy coming on and talking to us three loonies for East End of Glasgow. But I want to say a massive thanks, mate. It's been a total privilege having you on and listening to your stories. And lads, I'm sure you'll agree, some remarkable experiences Kevin's had, and it's been absolutely amazing listening to his stories.
There's like Aaron will probably vouch as well when he comes back in, but there's loads you can talk to guys like Kevin that played the game in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. You could talk. You could generally do 5 or 6 podcasts, Jake, about different aspects of their life and different aspects of how people train and who you play with. There's loads of things you can talk about, JP. But again, speak to Kevin's been a privilege. I've seen him play football. He was a good player, and a lot of guys at Kevin's standard, they kind of down themselves. Oh, I done okay, I done this, but to play at the Premier League, Kevin, to play in FA Cup finals, to play against Celtic, play against Rangers, play full time in Scotland. For me, for a fantastic career, mate, and I think it's Aaron, it's something you should definitely look upon in his life as a massive thing, mate, to play at that level. And again, it's been a privilege to speak to him today.
Oh, spot on. It's been a pleasure listening. It's mesmerising to a degree just listening to some of your stories, because see, at the end of the day, you've had a career doing what we all dream of doing. You've had the pleasure of being a football player, which we weren't lucky enough to do, but just listening to some of the stories, that's a kind of near second best. It's brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant listening to you, so thanks very much. And just, I always remember you talking about the weightlifting at Aberdeen, and it came into my head with Jim Leighton with his goalie gloves on, bench pressing or something like that. So no, but it's thanks again for your time, Kevin. It's been a great wee recording and great morning, and thanks for your time.
Nah, thanks a lot, guys. It's been great chatting with you.
Well, it's been a privilege, folks. We thank you very much, and we'll see you again on the Celtic Unrestricted View. Take care.
Take care.